What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to our Bible study. All right. So now we're looking at Numbers chapter 28. Last chapter, the big thing is that Joshua was appointed as the new leader of the Israelites. And, I just had a thought related to that. Maybe his connection with God and his leadership wasn't quite the same as Moses, at least yet, because of Moses still being alive. But, I don't know. We might just have to keep track of that as the events, follow throughout the story, so to speak. So yeah, they're still kind of near the Promised Land, I think by the Jordan River, possibly right by Jericho, if I'm recalling correctly. But I'd rather not spend too much time trying to be like, yeah, I think they're in this location. Because I don't know if the exact location is super duper important to what's going on right now. We'll just have to wait and see. So, here we go. Numbers 28. The Lord said to Moses, "Give these instructions to the people of Israel. The offerings you present as special gifts are a pleasing aroma to me. They are my food. See to it that they are brought at the appointed times and offered according to my instructions. Say to the people, this is the special gift you must present to the Lord as your daily burnt offering. You must offer 2 one-year-old male lambs with no defects. Sacrifice 1 lamb in the morning and the other in the evening. With each lamb, you must offer a grain offering of 2 quarts of choice flour mixed with 1 quart of pure oil of pressed olives. This is the regular burnt offering instituted at Mount Sinai as a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Along with it, you must present the proper liquid offering of 1 quart of alcoholic drink with each lamb, poured out in the holy place as an offering to the Lord. Offer the 2nd lamb in the evening with the same grain offering and liquid offering. It too is a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord." So, this is one of those things where I kind of wonder a little bit why it's being brought up now, if it was, supposedly instituted back at Mount Sinai. Which verse did it say that? It specifically made reference to Mount Sinai. Yeah, a regular burnt offering instituted at Mount Sinai. So, unless maybe it wasn't necessarily said at Mount Sinai that it was a daily thing, and it was just that the type of offering being presented is like the one mentioned at Mount Sinai as a special gift / pleasing aroma to the Lord. And it also doesn't specify in here whether, this daily burnt offering, I don't think, it seems kind of ridiculous to me, especially given the sheer number of people, that this would have been like a daily offering per household. Because that's going to take a huge chunk out of their resources, if that's the case. I mean, the registration of the troops 2 chapters ago said there were 600,000 men. Also, I just found the words alcoholic drink here to be a bit odd. I thought it was pretty much assumed in previous instances that, the liquid offering was wine. But it doesn't specify that here. I don't know. Anyway, the footnotes here are probably just going to get into the original Hebrew measurements. So, anyway, that I guess kind of, wraps up my thoughts on that section of it. Because again, these types of offerings were discussed in great detail in previous books and chapters and whatnot. So yeah, with it being 2 of these a day, I can't imagine that would have been per family or anything like that, because, like, some people just wouldn't have had that much to offer. So, like, educated guess, I'm thinking, even though the wording isn't clear on this, that it was just, like, these daily offerings were for the entire community. But anyway, speaking of offerings, I guess there's going to be a lot of stuff about offerings in this chapter. Moving on to verse 9. On the Sabbath day, sacrifice 2 one-year-old male lambs with no defects. They must be accompanied by a grain offering of 4 quarts of choice flour, moistened with olive oil, and a liquid offering. This is the burnt offering to be presented each Sabbath day, in addition to the regular burnt offering and its accompanying liquid offering. Okay, so does that mean we're doubling up on this, or is it... Like, I'm trying to think if this was sort of a replacement for... although it says in addition, but was that assumed that the regular burnt offerings were just for the other days of the week, because the Sabbath day was supposed to be a day of rest and them not working, but you gotta at least do this or it could be that the offerings were sort of doubled up, so to speak. Also with more flour mixed in there. Anyway, was beer pretty much like water? There's evidence in Egypt that beer was better for... Yeah, I'm honestly not real sure which would have been more plentiful out of, say, beer or wine. I just know that there are more references in the Bible specifically to wine and the making thereof. In fact, I don't know if I really recall any instance of beer being mentioned specifically. Like, pressing grapes is mentioned, making wine is mentioned, in relation to that. Drinking wine is mentioned specifically, but it doesn't mention specifically beer. It usually ends up being either wine specifically, or it just says alcohol, generally speaking. Because, I mean, that would have been, a different plant, bit of a different process to make that, obviously. But maybe that's why it just says alcoholic drink here, because possibly there were more options. I don't really know for sure on that one. That's I'm not that studied in, the Bible and what their culture was like at that time. Okay. So, we've covered daily offerings, Sabbath offerings. Moving on to verse 11 with another set of offerings. On the first day of each month, present an extra burnt offering to the Lord of 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs, all with no defects. These must be accompanied by grain offerings of choice flour, moistened with olive oil, 6 quarts with each bull, 4 quarts with the ram, and 2 quarts with each lamb. This burnt offering will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. You must also present a liquid offering with each sacrifice, 2 quarts of wine for each bull, 1/3 of a gallon for the ram, and 1 quart for each lamb. Present this monthly burnt offering on the first day of each month throughout the year. On the first day of each month, you must also offer 1 male goat for a sin offering to the Lord. This is in addition to the regular burnt offering and its accompanying liquid offering. See, this time it specifically mentions wine. Odd that it would specify wine in this case. But I guess, maybe for the more frequent offerings, it is making allowance for there to be other, possible beverages utilized. I don't know. Because when there were things in the previous chapters regarding all these offerings and other, just chapters on chapters of different kinds of offerings, there were kind of allowances made. It's like, okay, if you don't have this kind of animal available, then you can give this instead. I think one of them was, if you don't have a lamb available to offer, then you could offer two turtle doves or pigeons or something like that instead. But 2 birds in any case. So, yeah, maybe this is a similar just allowing for other options kind of deal. Again, measurement there for the footnote. So, now we've got daily offerings of 2 male lambs with associated grain and liquid offerings. Additionally, the Sabbath weekly offering of 2 more male lambs with more grain and liquid. And then monthly, there was the addition of 2 bulls, a ram, and 7 male lambs. So, I mean, yeah. This is all the more reason, in my opinion, that I would think this is, one set of offerings for all of the people. And I think a bunch of these offerings were actually discussed previously. Maybe it's kind of revisiting them for the sake of the newer generation that, may have been too young to understand or possibly not even born when these commands were given previously. That's also a possibility I'm considering. So, anyway, then we get to verse 16, and offerings for the Passover. On the 14th day of the first month, you must celebrate the Lord's Passover. On the following day, the 15th day of the month, a joyous 7-day festival will begin, but no bread made with yeast may be eaten. The first day of the festival will be an official day for Holy Assembly, and no ordinary work may be done on that day. As a special gift, you must present a burnt offering to the Lord. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs, all with no defects. These will be accompanied by grain offerings of choice flour, moistened with olive oil, 6 quarts with each bull, 4 quarts with the ram, and 2 quarts with each of the 7 lambs. You must also offer a male goat as a sin offering to purify yourselves and make yourselves right with the Lord. Present these offerings in addition to your regular morning burnt offering. On each of the 7 days of the festival, this is how you must prepare the food offering that is presented as a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. These will be offered in addition to the regular burnt offerings and liquid offerings. The 7th day of the festival will be another official day for Holy Assembly, and no ordinary work may be done on that day. But it doesn't specify another set of special offerings there. But still, whenever they had the yearly Passover celebration, there was basically another set of what would... It looks exactly equivalent to the monthly offering. Because, yeah, 2 bulls, 1 ram, 7 lambs with no defects. Grain offerings, I think, are all the same. And liquid offerings, yeah. And the male goat for the sin offering. So basically, one extra set of offerings like that to mark a very special occasion for God's people. Because, Passover, remembering when they were delivered from Egypt, and all that. Footnote there. This day in the ancient Hebrew lunar calendar occurred in late March, April, or early May. Which, that might seem like quite a range, but because their calendar operated a bit different, that's probably why there was that range of possibility relative to our modern day calendars. But yeah, so once a year there was that additional set of offerings to commemorate the occasion of the Passover. Footnote there. Okay. Could also read to make atonement for yourselves instead of make yourselves right with the Lord. Similar meaning, but again, just getting back to possibly a more word-for-word translation of the original Hebrew. Okay then. One last thing in this chapter, and then, well, I'm not going to say we're done with the offerings for sure, but that'll at least wrap up all offerings mentioned in this chapter. So, verse 26. At the festival of harvest, when you present the first of your new grain to the Lord, you must call an official day for holy assembly, and you may do no ordinary work on that day. Present a special burnt offering on that day as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. It will consist of 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 one-year-old male lambs. These will be accompanied by grain offerings of choice flour moistened with olive oil, 6 quarts with each bull, 4 quarts with the ram, and 2 quarts with each of the 7 lambs. Sound familiar? Also offer 1 male goat to purify yourselves and make yourselves right with the Lord. Prepare these special burnt offerings along with their liquid offerings, in addition to the regular burnt offering and its accompanying grain offering. Be sure that all the animals you sacrifice have no defects. Okay, so basically, another special occasion, another set of monthly offering equivalent in addition to the normal stuff. So the Festival of Weeks may have been the original Hebrew name for it, later called Pentecost. And it doesn't exactly say in here when it's supposed to be celebrated. It might have specified that in a previous chapter when discussing that festival, though. This was, supposed to be a sign of their continued dedication, recognition of the Lord, their God. Having these, I almost want to say like rituals of, taking time to remember God, giving things to God, and basically just making a continual concerted effort on that front, like, people nowadays might do with prayer, and or, weekly tithes, and or, some people do monthly, additional fasting or other offerings or something to that effect. I mean, it's kind of, setting the initial tone and standard of you should be, if you're really making an effort to follow God, connect with God, and, continue that relationship, so to speak, these are things that are commanded more so because they're beneficial for the remembrance of that. But I mean, yes, they're also commanded in this case more strictly for God's people as a way to kind of separate them from the other people groups of the world. Okay, so that's going to do it for Numbers 28. Just lots of stuff about offerings, which, again, I'm kind of thinking is in there just to, remind the younger generation about all this and how it's supposed to happen, and there might have been more detail added to, relative to prior chapters regarding offerings that would happen on a regular basis. But anyway, enough about that. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts you have. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.